let's get this thing finished off. Last time we got everything assembled and it all seems to have gone together really well. I just really love the look of this thing. I wasn't sure about the colour, I'll admit. When I first opened the tin I kind of thought, oh, is that the one for me? But happily now it's all together. I think it was the right decision. I absolutely love it, and it will make a really refreshing inclusion into my guitar collection because I don't have anything that's even remotely this bright and colourful, so that's an added bonus. Now, somebody did say in the comments on the last video, how was I going to deal with the shielding paint that is exposed beyond the scratch plate? Thanks for noticing. You might just be able to see there's a tiny little piece of the shielding paint exposed there. Now I'm hoping that it's going to come off quite easily. I'm just going to take a little bit of this super fine polish. I did use this on a couple of spots when I first put the shielding paint on, and it brought it off really nicely. So I'm just literally going to rub into that corner. And I'm getting right in there with a fingernail to get right up to the edge. If I was being super hypercritical, I could say you might just be able to see a bit of black there if you look carefully. But a blind man on a galloping horse would be more than happy to see that. So we can call that little job done and then move on to the more pressing matter, which is getting the nut sorted out so we can get some strings on this. And I'm hoping sorting out a nut for this is going to be relatively straightforward. Straight off the bat, that nut blank fits in quite nicely, so it's just a case of using the old half pencil trick to give us a starting mark for where we need to be. We can get this to the disc sander, take the bulk of that off, and then fine tune things from there. Now I've actually put a new disc on here a few days ago, not realising that I was going to be doing this nut blank, so this is going to be quite aggressive, so I do need to be a little bit careful. And I've also got this little bit of whiteboard down just so I can get closer to the disc, so I don't have the risk of this being pulled into the machine. So I shall very gently now just try and get this kind of somewhere near where we need it. And you might notice there that I actually did that on the centre of the disc. That is just because it is slightly less aggressive than the outside. If you think how this operates, this bit in the centre is turning just a little bit slower than this bit at the outside, so it cuts a little bit less. Okay, so we can get this back to the bench now and start to get it cleaned up and something like an actual nut. Which means I can also use my new toy for the first time, which is this handy dandy little vise that I can secure in another vise. And just to start off with, I'm just going to kind of take the sharp edges off there. This isn't going to be our final shaping, but it's just to get those rough edges off and get rid of some of those sanding marks. And with that done, we can get it back onto the guitar, get the two E strings fitted and start to work out the string spacing. And as standard for me anyway, Ernie Ball Hybrid Slinkies 9 to 46 gauges. Let's get them opened. Oh. And we can get the first two strings on. And from here I can just work out whereabouts I want my string to fall on the nut, so I'm leaving a little bit of space on the fret so it's not falling off the edge. And I think that looks about right for that string, so on this thicker string I'm going to mark either side of it, and then on the high E string I'll just do the same thing. And from there I can get it back into the little vise, and I can use my nut slotting rule to work out where the rest of the slots need to fall. And hopefully also we can see there that with these strings held in place where they need to be, they break over the pole pieces quite nicely. So that's all looking like everything's in pretty good alignment there. Happy days. And then all I'm going to do is take my string spacing rule. This is from Crimson, but there are others available, and I'm just going to kind of line up the best match I can for the spacing that I've decided to use. Now, I've done a few kind of Telecaster and Stratocaster nuts before, so I have actually got some marks on this rule to kind of guide me as to kind of the ballpark of where I need to be, and that's looking to be about right. So simply going to place that on. I'll just square some lines across. Like that. And then it's just a case of using my nut slotting files. Eesh, horrible. Just to start those slots off. I'm not going to go down to full depth just yet. And there's the slots started. They look quite even actually, look quite nice. So we can get this back into the neck and start to get it measured out for final trimming to shape, etc. So next up we can just slip this back into place and get that centralised. I'm just going to mark where it meets the edge of the neck, and we can get that over to the disc sander again and get it cut to size. And that's fitting quite nicely now, so I'm just going to take a little bit of time to just kind of really clean this up and smooth all these kind of square edges over. Firstly with a file, and then with increasingly finer grits of sandpaper until we've got something that kind of really fits and feels nice. Okay, so that's all fully stringed up and roughly in tune. Sounds nice. Happy with that. So the next thing I've done is I've measured with some feeler gauges the gap between the bottom of this rule and the fretboard. So that is essentially the thickness of the frets at that point on the neck. And then I've made up a stack of my feeler gauges of that distance and I've added an extra 20 thou. Now that's going to get me somewhere in the ballpark, and then I can fine tune from there. So what I'm going to do is I'll just drop that string out, and then going back at a slight angle and file down until I start to catch the stack of feeler gauges, which is just there. And that should give us something like the nut action that we want. And it's simply a case of just repeating that process across all 6 strings. And there it is, all put together and set up, and it sounds quite nice. Now I've got this set up as I like them, with the tremolo sat against the body, and I know that's not to everyone's taste, but that's just the way I like them, which means that there's no upwards pull, but I can go down. If I did want this fully floating, it's just a matter of kind of backing these screws out a little bit until the bridge comes off the body a little bit. It's not a difficult thing to achieve, but like I say, it's just my personal preference to have them set up like this. In terms of setting it up, went pretty well actually. Had to take a little bit of truss rod off just to introduce a little bit of neck relief. Had to set the action a little bit, wasn't too bad. Most of it kind of ballparked itself. The intonation was actually quite close right off the bat. The only one I really had to play with was the A string. Apart from that, very minor adjustment. And I put the string tree on. I don't like string trees, but you need them on a Strat or a Telecaster. Other than that, pretty basic and straightforward setup. And from the little go I've had on it, it seems to play quite nicely. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clear all of this junk away, make a little bit of space. We can get an amp into the workshop and have a listen, hear what this thing sounds like. And to do the demo, I'm just going to use my little Fender Mustang Micro that's going straight into the PC for recording purposes. It just gives a lot better sound quality, if I'm honest, and just makes my life that a little bit easier in terms of processing the audio. And I've got this set clean with just a little bit of reverb on. It is kind of on the edge of breakup, but but that soon cleans up if we just drop the volume down a little bit. And we should all know by now that I'm not the best player in the world, so I'll just run through a few chords on each position and you can get a feeling for what this sounds like. So this is the bridge position, tones on full. I've got the volume back down to about 7. This is position 2, so bridge and middle pick up together. Middle on its own. Middle and neck. And the neck on its own. And for me, that is just pure Stratocaster tone. I really do like these pickups, which are the Tone Rider Classic Blues set. So I'm just going to increase the volume to 10, and that should just give us a little bit of breakup on this. And I have to say, I am extremely happy with that. It sounds to me exactly as a Stratocaster should. It's probably got a little bit of settling in to do. It's obviously only been together for a few hours, but I'm really, really, really pleased with it. Just a quick rundown on exactly what we have got, in case anyone hasn't really seen the full series. So, start with the neck, maple neck. It's actually got a Wenge fretboard. We've got kind of jumbo frets in there, stainless steel, bone nut, Goto vintage tuners, pearl dot markers, pretty standard there. In terms of the body, older body, 3 pieces. I always knew it was going to be painted, so I wasn't really particularly bothered about it being a multi-piece body. It's a Wilkinson vintage Stratocaster style bridge. It's got the tremolo arm just pulls in and out, which is handy. It is set with the tremolo right back against the body, which is how I prefer to set them up. I play quite heavy and I tend to kind of bounce off the bridge quite a bit when I'm palm muting, and if you've got that floating, it can kind of knock it in and out of tune as you're doing that. Controls, 3 250k CTS pots, orange drop caps in there, Switchcraft 5-way position switch, as I've just mentioned, Tone Rider Classic Blues pickups, which I'm very, very pleased with. The shielding in the cavities is Nitor Lac shielding paint. All of the finishing supplies used on this are also from Nitor Lac, so the paint, the primer, the thinners, all the sanding and polishing materials were all very kindly donated by Nitor Lac, so a big shout out to them. Please visit their website if you are in the business of finishing a guitar. Even though I own a couple of Stratocasters, this is the first one I've ever built, so I am very pleased with the way it's come out. And I dare say I'll be building another one at some point in the future. So that's it from this one. I'll be back very shortly with the start of a brand new build. Until then, don't forget to hit that like button if you've enjoyed this series. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. So many of my viewers aren't subscribed, and it really does help the channel out if you do. I'm going to go away, have a think about what I'm going to do next, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.